you want to start out by introducing yourself?
Sure, I would love to introduce myself. My name is Brian, and I'm a photographer here in Lafayette, and I run this co-op studio that you see right here. And I'm also an editor for Stocksy.com. I teach on occasion, and I do a lot of photography-related stuff.
All right.
That's my story.
Well, what ignited the spark in you to start a new business venture and go in the photography route?
Spark probably came, I guess, in undergrad when I was in architecture school. I got to take photography 1 as an elective, black and white, darkroom, all that old school jazz, and fell in love with it. I was in there like nonstop, day and night, all summer. So that's where it started. That was about the year 2000, and just slowly increased my interest in photography and slowly got more experienced until it's what I do full time now.
All right. Well, where did you get your business's funding or capital when you started out initially?
When I started, I had a day job, which a lot of people do, but it was full time at Purdue. So we were living on my photography or my Purdue income mostly, and then all the photography income was kind of going back into the business to buy all the lights and cameras and lenses. So I was investing, all that photography income back into the business. That was probably 2 years worth of doing that.
Nice. How did you build a successful customer base, or how did you go about marketing your business, and what's your most successful form of marketing?
Most successful form of marketing is probably the internet. It's pretty vague, but I'm really like an anti-marketer. Like I don't advertise or pay for advertising. I don't try to sell my business because that's not my strong suit. So what I tell people, and this is what I told your class probably a number of times, was to be really good. Be so good they can't ignore you. That's my quote from Steve Martin, who's a comedian, not a photographer. But you have to be good at what you do first. You have to have a good product to put out there. So if you guys are talking about creating apps or businesses or startups, it has to be a quality concept or product first. And then when you're dealing with customers, like you said, or clients, my second little nugget that I like to tell people is I just forgot what it was, but under promise and over deliver. So once you get clients that are interested in you because you're good, then you have to do work for them, right? And once you do work for them, you should be exceeding their expectations. You should be promising all these things up front and then just barely delivering on them. You want to under-promise and over-deliver. And then the third part is where the pseudo-marketing comes in. And it's just to share it, just to get it out there. You don't have to pay for ads and big marketing campaigns, but if you just do good work and then share it out to the world, more work will come back to you. So it's free. The internet is amazing. So that's my anti-marketing approach.
So what sacrifices have you had to make to be a successful entrepreneur? And has being an entrepreneur affected your family life?
Sacrifices. Well, all the money I mentioned before that's going back into the business could have been a nice vacation, could have been a nicer car. I mean, the car I drove this stuff here tonight, is not, that camera's worth more than the car I drove here. So there's financial sacrifices. There's time, investment. Like I said, when I was working at Purdue, starting up the business and funding it, I was basically working 2 full-time jobs, which was a big sacrifice of my time, for a few years. And family, like you said, that's time I could have been spending with my family. My girls, it's probably their bedtime right now. But, I love what I do, and I love doing this and teaching and learning video.
Is your company profitable, and how does it make its money? If you're comfortable stating, what was your profit from last year?
Yes, it is profitable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it right now. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
How does your company?
How do I make it? Well, I take all kinds of clients that find me online usually, and I shoot a lot of weddings, portraits, some commercial work and other events, products. I shoot stock. Starting to dabble in video, as you can see. So I still do a lot of different things, teach and all kinds of stuff. So my approach to revenue is to cast a wide net still. I'm not like a really niche photographer, or I don't just teach or just shoot weddings or whatever. It's still a pretty wide net to get a lot of different revenue streams. And I think that's spread your risk out too. If you guys have talked about that. So, and then the last question was how much?
Yeah.
What did I make last year? So, broke 100,000 last year gross, which sounds amazing, and I think it's doing pretty good for photography in a mid-sized town. But half of that was expenses. So especially with the studio, which was last July and August, September, and ongoing, really, was a big chunk of that. What I tell people is it's usually in most businesses, or especially photography, a third is going to be expenses, at least, maybe to a half. You got to think of expenses plus taxes. Taxes is a big chunk. So at the end of the day, the six figures is really an average American salary, like almost exactly. So you think about wedding photographers getting rich quick or something like that, it's really not the case. We talked about how many hours I work every day, right?
Yeah.
When you average out the hourly income, probably it's not as impressive as my gross revenue for the year. So,
what have been some of your failures, and what have you learned from them?
failures, yeah, it's a tough question. Speaking of the studio, this was one of the more challenging things, I think, and I'm not ready to call it a failure because it's still in progress. Like, it's not even been a year yet, but it's definitely been slower to show a profit or to pay for itself or to be a success in what I was planning than I thought. So we'll have to come back, in a few months or later this year to see if it was really, I guess, worth it. And failure that's a hard word. I wouldn't say it's a failure, even if I had to close the doors or anything, which I'm not going to do. But it was definitely not as successful as fast as I thought. So, and if we go back 10 years, I'm sure there's photo shoots that I just totally bombed, and my blocking from my memory right now. But otherwise, I haven't really had any huge catastrophic failures or anything detrimental to my business or my brand. So, yeah, it's a tough one.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, going off of that kind of, is how do you define success?
Success, in a nutshell, on a really basic general level, I would say I think I'm being successful when I can do what I love and do it full time and provide for a family. So I provide for a family of four doing photography, which is, I think, kind of rare. My wife gets to stay at home most of the time. She's not running around town with the girls. So that's my first definition of success, I guess.